You know exactly what you need to do. You've known for weeks, maybe months, maybe, if you're being honest, years. The goal is not a mystery. The plan is not the problem. The information is not missing. You have the idea, you have the tools, you have more knowledge than most people who have already built what you want to build, and yet you don't move. You sit, you think, you plan a little more. You watch someone else do the thing you should be doing. You tell yourself tomorrow. You tell yourself soon. You tell yourself when the time is right, when you feel ready, when conditions improve, and the days stack up like unpaid bills, and the life you want stays exactly where it has always been, just out of reach, just slightly ahead of where you're willing to go. That is not laziness. That is a biological trap, and today we are blowing it open. Let me tell you what procrastination actually is, because you have been lied to about it your entire life. Every productivity guru, every time management system, every app that blocks your social media, and every planner that promises to fix your focus has been treating procrastination as a scheduling problem, a discipline problem, a willpower problem. And because you accepted that framing, you have spent years trying to fix the wrong thing. You bought the systems, you downloaded the apps, you watched the videos, maybe videos like this one, and for a day or two, something shifted, and then it didn't. And then you were back in the freeze, deeper this time, with the added weight of another failed attempt stacked on top. Because procrastination is not a time management problem. It is a nervous system response. It is your brain's ancient threat detection system misfiring in the modern world. It is the freeze response, one of 3 primal survival reactions hardwired into your biology, activating not in the presence of a predator, but in the presence of a deadline, a difficult conversation, a blank page, a decision that matters. Your body cannot tell the difference between a lion and a life-changing opportunity that terrifies you. Both trigger the same circuit. Both produce the same result: a body locked in place, a mind spinning without traction, an inability to move that looks from the outside like laziness, but feels from the inside like being trapped in concrete. And you have been punishing yourself for something that is, at its root, a survival mechanism doing exactly what it was built to do. The shame you carry about your procrastination, the why can't I just do it, the what is wrong with me, the quiet self-disgust that follows every wasted hour, that shame is not helping you. That shame is making it worse, because shame activates the threat response, and an activated threat response produces more freeze. You have been in a loop, a biological, neurological, invisible loop that no planner app was ever going to break. You are not lazy. You are a fighter who forgot they're in a fight. Today that changes, not with a new system, not with a new app, with understanding, with strategy, and with the specific, targeted, brutal mental tools that interrupt the freeze at its source and convert that locked energy into forward motion. This is not a productivity video. This is a nervous system jailbreak. Let's build it. To defeat something, you need to understand it, not abstractly, not theoretically, in the specific, granular, embarrassingly personal way that makes you recognize it in real time. So let's walk through what actually happens in your brain and body when the freeze takes over. Because once you see the mechanism, you can never be fooled by it again. It starts with a signal, not always a dramatic one. Sometimes it's the notification that a project is due. Sometimes it's opening a blank document. Sometimes it's thinking about making the call you've been putting off for 2 weeks. Sometimes it's simply sitting down to do the thing. The signal is often tiny. The response is never small. The moment the signal arrives, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, runs a rapid pattern recognition scan. It is asking one question, one ancient primal question that predates language, predates society, predates everything. Is this safe? And if the answer is uncertain, if the outcome is unclear, if failure is possible, if judgment is possible, if pain of any kind is possible, the amygdala fires. It sends a distress signal down your nervous system. Your stress hormones spike. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that plans, decides, creates, executes, begins to go offline, and you enter a state that feels like fog, like heaviness, like an invisible hand pressing down on your chest and your motivation simultaneously. That state has a name. It is called the freeze response. And in the presence of an actual predator, it is life-saving. It reduces your visibility, slows your movement, makes you harder to detect while your system figures out the next move. In the presence of your inbox, it is catastrophic, because while you are in freeze, time moves. Deadlines approach, opportunities narrow, and the longer you stay frozen, the more evidence your brain accumulates that the task is dangerous. Because look, it made you freeze. That's evidence of threat. So next time, the freeze comes faster. The avoidance becomes more automatic. The pattern deepens. How many times have you sat down to do something important and spent 45 minutes doing everything except the thing? Reorganizing your desk, checking email, making coffee you didn't need, starting a new playlist, and feeling the entire time a vague nausea of avoidance that you couldn't name and couldn't stop? That was freeze, not weakness. Freeze. It's 2:17 p.m. on a Thursday. You work from home. The morning was a wash, meetings, emails, the general entropy of a workday with no hard walls. But now you have 2 hours, real, clear, open hours. And there's one task, the proposal, the chapter, the application, the thing that actually moves your life forward. You sit down, you open the document, and then nothing. You read the last paragraph you wrote 3 days ago. You read it again. You check your email just once, just to clear your head. You get a glass of water. You read the paragraph a third time. You open a browser to do research that slowly becomes reading an article about something completely unrelated. You feel the time slipping. You feel the familiar shame starting to collect at the edges of your awareness. And when you finally close the laptop, 40 minutes later, having produced nothing, the voice starts, why can't you just do it? Other people do it. What is actually wrong with you? Nothing is wrong with you. Your amygdala assessed the task as threatening because it matters, because failure is possible, because judgment is possible, and it froze you before you could start. The voice that followed, that is not your conscience. That is your threat system, still active. Now adding shame to the existing fear. Shame that will make the freeze worse next time. Your procrastination is not a character flaw. It is a misfired alarm. Stop apologizing to a smoke detector. Here's what makes this particularly insidious in 2026. Your phone and your feed are perfectly designed to feed the freeze. The moment your brain enters avoidance, it craves stimulation. Low stakes, low consequence, high dopamine stimulation that feels like doing something while being perfectly safe. Scroll, watch, react, comment. No risk, no judgment, no possibility of failure. The feed is the freeze's perfect partner. It extends the avoidance infinitely, makes it pleasurable, and sends you back to the task not refreshed, but depleted. Lower dopamine baseline, reduced prefrontal function, more firmly locked than before. You are not using your phone to escape. You are using your phone to stay frozen. Those are different things. And knowing the difference is the beginning of getting out. Here's the part nobody talks about. The freeze doesn't just steal your time. It steals your identity. Slowly, incrementally, in ways so gradual you don't notice until one day you look in the mirror and realize you have not done a hard thing in months. You have not moved toward anything that genuinely matters in so long that the hunger for it has gone quiet. And quiet hunger is the most dangerous kind because it doesn't motivate you. It just haunts you. The freeze repeated enough times becomes a self-concept. I'm a procrastinator. You say it like it's a personality type, like it's something that happened to you, like you were born with this instead of conditioned into it through years of avoided discomfort and unchallenged fear responses. You wear it almost with a rueful pride, a way of explaining yourself before anyone can criticize you. Oh, I'm terrible with deadlines. I'm the world's biggest procrastinator. As if naming it neutralizes it, as if calling yourself by the name of your own prison makes you free. It doesn't. It deepens the grooves because the brain is always listening to what you say about yourself. And every time you declare yourself a procrastinator, your nervous system hears, this is who I am. This is my baseline. And it acts accordingly. When is the last time you introduced a version of yourself that doesn't include the freeze? When is the last time you said out loud or even just internally, I am someone who acts. I am someone who starts. I am someone who finishes what I begin. When did you last inhabit that identity, even for 1 hour? Because here is the brutal truth at the center of this section. The freeze has been building your identity for years. Every avoided task was a vote. Every I'll do it tomorrow was a vote. Every hour of numbing instead of creating was a vote. And right now, the scoreboard shows a landslide victory for the version of you that doesn't move. That ends today. It's 11:43 p.m. on a Sunday. You have a job interview in 9 hours. You have had all weekend to prepare. On Friday evening, you told yourself Saturday morning. Saturday morning came and went in a fog of small tasks that felt urgent and weren't. Saturday afternoon, you genuinely intended to start, but there was something on TV and you were tired and you told yourself Sunday, you do it properly. It is now Sunday at 11:43 p.m. The interview is at 9 a.m. You are sitting on your bed with your laptop open and your notes from a previous interview, not even the same industry, splayed around you. You feel the freeze now, not as fog, but as cold panic. Your heart is elevated. Your thoughts are scattered. Every time you try to focus on one answer, your brain jumps to three others. You are frozen not in stillness, but in chaos, spinning without traction, which is a different flavor of the same response. And underneath the panic is something quieter and more honest, the recognition that you did this to yourself, that the weekend was a choice, that the freeze was a choice you made before you knew you were making it, and that the version of you sitting here at 11:43 p.m. is not who you want to be. That recognition, that ache, that is not weakness. That is the part of you that has not given up. That is the part of you that still believes in the other version, the one that prepares, the one that moves, the one that doesn't get to Sunday at 11:43 p.m. still empty-handed. Hold on to that ache. We're going to weaponize it. Your future self is watching every choice you make right now. Don't make them watch this now. Before we go further, I want to speak to something that lives underneath the procrastination. Something even more uncomfortable than the freeze itself. Most procrastination is not about the task. It is about the outcome. And more specifically, it is about the judgment of the outcome. You don't avoid the work because the work is hard. You avoid the work because if you do the work and it still isn't good enough, you lose the last protection you have, the protection of potential. Unstarted things can still be great. Unwritten books are still bestsellers in your head. Unlaunched businesses have not yet failed. Unfiled applications have not yet been rejected. The freeze is protecting your potential by keeping it theoretical. And the cost of that protection is your actual life. The moment you start, potential becomes reality. Reality can be criticized. Reality can fail. Reality requires you to show up as who you actually are, not who you imagine you might be in the perfect conditions you're still waiting for. And your brain knows this. Your brain is running this calculation every single time. And it chooses the theoretical every single time. Because in the short term, theoretical is safer. In the long term, theoretical is catastrophic. Protecting your potential by never using it is the slowest way to destroy it. You're halfway through this, and I know something is hitting. I know because this is the kind of content that either makes you defensive or makes you finally honest. If you're still here, if you haven't scrolled, haven't paused, haven't switched to something easier, that means part of you is ready. So here's your challenge: subscribe. Not because I'm asking nicely, because what's coming in the second half of this video is the actual arsenal. The 5 freeze-breaking protocols, the identity rebuild, the daily system that ends the loop permanently. If you leave now, you take the pain without the weapon. Stay and fight. These are not suggestions. These are not productivity hacks dressed in aggressive language. These are neurologically sound, psychologically tested, battle-tested interventions that interrupt the freeze response at its source. Follow them in order. Follow them completely. Half measures don't break loops. They just make them more comfortable. The 2-minute invasion. Command: you do not negotiate with the freeze. You invade it with 2 minutes of absolute commitment. Reality check: the freeze derives its power from the imagined enormity of the task. Your brain is not afraid of 2 minutes. It is afraid of the entire project, the weeks, the difficulty, the judgment at the end. 2 minutes removes the enormity. It makes the task small enough for your amygdala to stand down. Immediate action when freeze activates. The moment you feel the fog, the heaviness, the pull toward avoidance, you set a physical timer for 2 minutes. Not in your head. Physical. On your phone, on a clock, on your watch. You then work on the task, specifically and only the task, for exactly 2 minutes. No more. After 2 minutes, you can stop, but you will not stop. Because the act of starting rewires the threat signal. 2 minutes into the task, the brain has recalibrated. The task is no longer unknown territory. It is familiar, and familiar is not threatening. You will find every time, without exception, that 2 minutes becomes 20. But the commitment is only ever 2. Lower the entry cost to the point where refusal becomes absurd. The body override. Command: move your body before you attempt to move the task. Reality check: the freeze is a physical state, not just a mental one. Your cortisol is elevated. Your nervous system is in threat mode. Your prefrontal cortex is partially offline. You cannot think your way out of a physiological state. You must physiology your way out. Trying to force focus while frozen is like trying to drive with the parking brake on. The effort is real. The movement is not. Immediate action before sitting down to the task, not after, before. You perform 5 minutes of intense physical movement, not a walk, not stretching, jump rope, jumping jacks, push-ups to failure, a sprint around the block. something that elevates your heart rate, floods your system with adrenaline, and forces your nervous system out of freeze and into activation. This is not a warm-up. This is a circuit interrupt. Your brain cannot maintain the freeze response in a body that is physically activated. It is physiologically incompatible. 5 minutes, every time, before the task, no exceptions. You cannot think your way out of a state your body puts you in. Move first. Think second, the shrink protocol. Command, make the task so small that refusing it becomes embarrassing. Reality check, you are not avoiding your goal. You are avoiding the gap between where you are and where the goal lives. That gap feels enormous because you keep measuring it from the wrong end. From the finished product looking backward instead of from today looking one step forward. The gap is only overwhelming when viewed in full. Up close, it is always just one step. Immediate action, take whatever task is frozen. Reduce it to its smallest possible first action. Not the first chapter, the first sentence. Not the first workout, the first squat. Not the full pitch deck, the first slide. Not the business plan, the first bullet point. Write the reduced task on paper. Physically write it. If you cannot commit to that one action today, reduce it further until you can. Keep reducing until the refusal becomes laughable. Then do that thing, only that thing. The momentum from that thing will carry you to the next thing without the freeze needing to approve the journey, the commitment contract. Command, make your next action public before you make it. Reality check, the freeze thrives in privacy. In private, the negotiation is internal, and the internal voice always wins because there are no consequences for backing down. The moment you introduce external accountability, even one person, even one public statement, the neurological calculation changes. Social consequence is one of the most powerful motivators in human biology. Your brain will fight harder to avoid social shame than to avoid any internal discomfort. Immediate action. Before you begin the task, send one message, text one person, post one public statement. It does not need to be dramatic. Starting the report right now, checking in with you in 1 hour. That is enough. That one message creates a social contract that your nervous system will honor even when your willpower cannot. You are not using willpower. You are using biology. Use it deliberately. The environment execution. Command, change the space. Change the state. Reality check. Your current environment has been contaminated by the freeze. If you have been avoiding a task in your home office now carries the neurological fingerprint of avoidance. The chair, the lighting, the smell of the room, they have all been paired with freeze responses through repeated association. Your brain walks into that space and immediately begins running the avoidance program. You are fighting both the task and the environment simultaneously. That is 2 battles you were never meant to fight at once. Immediate action. Change the physical space. A different room, a coffee shop, a library, a park bench with headphones. Anywhere your nervous system has not yet associated with freezing on this specific task. Bring only what you need for the task. No setup, no adjustment period. Open, start, work. The new environment gives your brain a pattern interrupt before the freeze even has time to engage. New space means no established avoidance pattern. You are starting clean. Use the window. Your environment is either an engine or an anchor. Choose deliberately or it chooses for you. I want to tell you something that no productivity video will tell you, because most productivity content treats the freeze as the enemy to be eliminated. And I have given you 5 tools to interrupt it. But here's the truth that lives underneath those tools. The truth that transforms this from a fight you have to keep winning into a war you actually end. The freeze is not your enemy. The freeze is your compass. Every single thing that activates your freeze response is a signal. It is your nervous system pointing with absolute accuracy at the things that matter most to you. You do not freeze on things that don't matter. You do not freeze on tasks that are inconsequential, reversible, or low stakes. You freeze on the things where you know somewhere beneath the fog that this could change everything. Think about it. You never froze on binge watching a series. You never froze on ordering food. You never froze on scrolling. Those things never triggered the threat response because they carry no meaningful consequence. The freeze only shows up when the stakes are real. So what are you currently frozen on? What is the task, the project, the conversation, the decision that keeps moving to tomorrow? Because whatever it is, that is the most important thing in your life right now. Your nervous system has already decided. The freeze is pointing directly at it. The question is not how to make it smaller. The question is whether you are willing to walk toward it. Here is what happens to people who learn to decode the freeze. Instead of just fight it, they stop wasting time on the wrong things. Because the things that don't activate the freeze, those are fine. Those are already getting done. It is specifically and only the frozen tasks that hold the compound returns, the relationships that could transform, the work that could break through, the versions of themselves that could emerge on the other side of the discomfort. The freeze is an X on a map, and you have been turning around every time you found it. I want you to think about someone you genuinely admire, someone who has built something real, someone who moves through the world with a kind of gravity that you recognize as earned. Do you think that person does not freeze? Do you think their nervous system does not generate the same threat signals yours does? They are human. They have an amygdala. They have the same ancient wiring you have. The difference, the single, teachable, learnable difference, is that they have developed a relationship with the freeze that is not surrender. They feel it arrive. They recognize it for what it is, and they make a decision not to eliminate the feeling, but to move through it anyway, not after it clears, through it, while it is present. While the fog is thick and the resistance is high and every piece of biology is screaming to stop, they move, imperfectly, uncomfortably, but forward. Every person you admire built something while feeling exactly what you feel right now. And this is where the power lives, because the freeze, when you move through it repeatedly, begins to transform. The threat signal does not disappear, but your relationship to it changes. Your brain begins to build a new association. Freeze signal equals important task equals I move anyway. And over months, over years, the freeze becomes a trigger for action rather than inaction. You learn viscerally, not theoretically, that the freeze is survivable, that the discomfort is finite, that what waits on the other side of it is always more valuable than what waits on the other side of avoidance. This is what they mean when they say someone has a high tolerance for discomfort. They did not arrive that way. They built it, repetition by repetition, freeze by freeze, movement by movement, and you can build it too, starting with the one frozen task you have been carrying the longest. What is the weight of the thing you have not started? Not the task itself, the weight of not doing it. The background radiation of avoidance that follows you through your days, the low hum of I should be doing that plays underneath every moment of leisure and makes nothing fully restful. The energy it costs you to keep something important at arm's length, not the energy of doing it, but the energy of perpetually not doing it. Does your avoidance actually rest you, or does it just occupy you? Because there is a version of your life where the background hum goes quiet, not because you have nothing left to do, but because you are doing the things that matter, where leisure is actually restful because your work is actually moving, where the weekend doesn't carry the low-grade guilt of undone things, where Sunday evening is not a reckoning. That version is not the reward of some future state of readiness. It is available right now. It is available the moment you move fully, without negotiation, toward the frozen thing. The rest you're looking for is on the other side of the work you're avoiding. Everything we have covered today, the biology, the protocols, the reframe, is preparation for this section, because tools without identity are temporary. You can use a protocol today and abandon it by Thursday if the person using it does not believe in the person they are becoming. So this is where we build the identity, not the ideal, abstract fantasy identity, the operational one, the one that shows up at 2 p.m. on a random Tuesday when nothing is dramatic and nothing is inspiring and everything is ordinary and the freeze arrives like it always does and the person simply moves. That person is not born. That person is constructed deliberately, repeatedly, in small moments that compound over time into someone unrecognizable from who they were. Here is how the construction works. It starts with one decision, not the decision to become a new person. That is too large, too dramatic, too easy to abandon when life pushes back. It starts with the decision to take one action today, in the next hour, before this video is 20 minutes in your rear view, on the frozen thing. One action, not the whole project. One action. Something specific, something measurable, something that takes less than 15 minutes and cannot be reasoned away. That action is not just an action. It is a vote. It is a neurological data point. It is evidence your brain will store and access the next time the freeze arrives, that you are the kind of person who moves. Every vote shifts the tally. Every small action changes the story your brain tells about who you are, slowly, cumulatively, irreversibly, and the story your brain tells about you is the most powerful force shaping your behavior. More powerful than your intentions, more powerful than your goals, more powerful than your knowledge of what you should do. The story is the operating system. You can load all the apps you want, all the systems, all the protocols, all the advice. But if the underlying operating system still runs the story, I am someone who freezes, every app is fighting an uphill battle, you have to rewrite the operating system. And you rewrite it the same way it was written in the first place, through repeated, accumulated, embodied experience. Not through affirmations, not through visualization, through action, through the data of your own behavior, updated daily, proving to your nervous system that a different story is possible. Who did you tell yourself you were going to be at the beginning of this year? Who did you promise, maybe not out loud, maybe just in that quiet, private moment of New Year reflection, that you were going to become? How close are you? And more importantly, what has been frozen? I want to tell you something about time that nobody wants to hear. Not because it is cruel, but because it is true. And true things are the only things that actually move people. Time is not neutral. Time is not patient. Time does not wait while you get ready. Every day you spend in the freeze is a day that could have been spent building, learning, connecting, creating, becoming. And those days do not return. They do not accumulate in a reserve account you can access when you finally decide to move. They are spent. Whether you use them or not, they are spent. This year will happen regardless of what you do with it. 12 months from today, you will be in a different place. The only question that matters, is whether that different place will be the result of your choices or the result of your avoidance. The frozen person and the moving person both age, both face uncertainty, both have hard days, boring days, days where nothing works. The difference is not in the conditions. The difference is in whether they move. Time passes anyway. The only choice is what you build while it does. Here's what I need you to understand about the person you are building. The one who breaks through the freeze, who moves toward the important things, who constructs a life that feels real rather than deferred. That person is not waiting for you at the end of a long transformation. That person is available to you in the next decision you make. Not the next big decision, the next micro decision. The moment after this video ends, when you have the choice to close the laptop and scroll or open a document and start. The person you want to be shows up in that moment, or they don't. And the version that shows up becomes a little more real, a little more solidified, a little more who you are, regardless of which choice you make. So let's make it explicit. Let's be precise about what we're building. Because vague identity goals are just sophisticated excuses. I want to be more productive. That is not an identity. I want to be someone who acts on their most important task first, before the freeze has time to build, before the day has time to derail, before the noise has time to vote. That is operational. That is specific enough for your nervous system to work with. You are building a person who treats discomfort as a signal, not a stop sign, who moves toward the freeze instead of away from it, who uses the protocols, not sometimes, not when motivated, but as standard operating procedure, as the default, as the baseline that doesn't require a good mood to execute. You are building a person who does not need permission to begin, who does not need conditions to be perfect before they're willing to start, who has learned through repetition, through the accumulated data of their own behavior, that starting imperfectly is always more valuable than waiting perfectly. Start badly, start small, start now. But start. That person is available to you. They are not a fantasy. They are the natural result of applying what you have learned today with the consistency that you have not yet allowed yourself to maintain. The capacity is there. It has always been there. The freeze was just louder. Make yourself louder. Here is your assignment, not next week, not after you finish the next thing on your list. Right now, before this tab closes, before this video scrolls away, write down the one thing that has been frozen the longest, the thing you already know, the thing that came to mind somewhere around the 4-minute mark of this video and has been sitting quietly in your peripheral awareness ever since. Don't write the list. Write the one. The thing, now write the first action, the smallest possible first action. The action you could take in the next 15 minutes if you made the decision right now to stop reading and start moving, then set a timer for 2 minutes and start not after you feel ready. You know now. You know from the biology, from the mechanism, from everything we covered today, that ready is not a feeling that precedes action. Ready is a feeling that follows it. The readiness comes from the movement, not before the movement. You have been waiting for a signal that only arrives after you've already done what you were waiting to feel ready for. The loop ends today. I have one more thing to say, and it is not about productivity or procrastination or neuroscience. It is simpler than all of that. The version of you that freezes, they are not the real you. The real you, the one underneath the fear, underneath the avoidance, underneath the years of accumulated evidence that you don't move. That person is hungry, relentlessly, quietly, persistently hungry for the life they can feel just slightly out of reach. That hunger is not a flaw. It is a signal. It is the most honest signal you have, and it deserves to be fed. Not tomorrow, not when things calm down, not when the timing is better, not when you feel different, more inspired, more ready, more anything. Now, the freeze wants you to believe that forward is impossible until something changes. But the only thing that needs to change is the next decision you make. One decision, one action, One vote for the person you've been promising yourself you would become. The loop is biological, but the break is a choice, and you are standing at the break right now. Choose. Your mindset is your most powerful weapon. Now go use it.